We are seeing a crackdown on college campuses across the country over a series of protests against the war in Gaza. Police used chemical irritants on demonstrators at Emory University in Atlanta. They say dozens were arrested, and the University of Southern California announced that it is canceling its main commencement ceremony over what it calls safety concerns. So for more on how these protests might impact the presidential election, I want to bring in Leslie Sanchez and Joel Payne. Leslie is a CBS News political analyst who's served in the George W. Bush administration. Joel is a CBS News political contributor, Democratic strategist, and chief communications officer for Move On. Great seeing you guys again on this Friday. Joel, going to start with you. How is this anti-war sentiment impacting President Biden's reelection campaign?
Anne-Marie, it's not good, obviously. I think it speaks to a couple of things. One, the challenges within the president's coalition. The young voters, this group of voters that are particularly being outspoken right now are folks that the president is going to need if he's going to keep that coalition together from 2020. And it's obvious that that part of the coalition is in a bit of disarray right now. I also think it kind of portends or portrays some kind of lack of order or lack of stability, which I think only matters to the extent that Joe Biden's whole case, the split screen that he's doing with Donald Trump, is that he represents stability and that Donald Trump represents chaos. So those two elements make the current situation less than ideal for the president. I do think that he's got time to, one, reach a meaningful ceasefire and a meaningful resolution of the situation in the Middle East and working with the actors there on the ground and healing the wounds and bringing that coalition back together. But look, let's make no bones about it. This is a difficult moment. And this is a moment where, the president is in some political peril. I'm sure he is more focused on the real world impacts on folks in the Middle East, but this is a moment of political peril for the president for sure.
And Leslie, on the other side, in terms of the Republicans, we saw Speaker Johnson go to Columbia University, and I don't know if it landed the way he wanted to, at least on the news. He was booed, and I was trying to kind of determine what he thought the purpose of that was going to be, what he thought the impact of that was going to be. Can you kind of give me a sense of how the Republicans are dealing with these demonstrations that we're seeing, how they're trying to characterize them?
Sure. I think that the difference, and I agree with Joel that it is a moment of peril for the president because he looks like there's no action. It looks flat. It looks as if it's weak. And those are all the criticisms of the current president. What you saw with Speaker Johnson, he stepped into the fray. He's trying to have a dialogue and was shouted down, but he still took the action and went there to start this effort to repudiate any effort that is pro-Hamas and anti-American. I think also you can look at the Texas Governor Abbott, who was very clear in removing protesters from the grounds with force and with directives to the university. The university is going to have political fallout, but the distinction between something like this that's happening now and something perhaps that we saw and we harken back to the 60s and the protests on college campuses, those were about policies and political ideology. This is fundamentally grounded in these universities that sound very anti-American, not just anti-Semitic. And that's why, again, you're seeing a contrast between Republican and Democrat. And people will hear what they want to hear. For Republicans, they think it's a strong measure to stand up to kind of the radicalism they'd see in these ivory towers. And I think it plays well politically for them.
I thought it was interesting that the speaker was there on campus. I don't think we've heard much from Donald Trump, and he has limited opportunities to talk about his position. He came into the courthouse today and he complained about the temperature in the building and that they were deliberately making him uncomfortable. He's got these little slivers when he comes in and out of the courtroom. I got to ask you, do you think he's making the most of them, Leslie?
100%. I mean, anybody who's been in a courtroom for a parking ticket or anything else knows that those courtrooms can be cold.
But I mean,
whether you're there,
do voters want to hear that?
Sure. This is the deal. So the RNC chairman just came on earlier this morning and was saying that since he's been in court, he is raising $1 million in small donor donations every day that the former president's in court. It has an appeal for working class voters who look at this as somebody who is, again, they're taking on a behemoth system, meaning the judicial system or the court system. And he's like every man out there. He steps out of the courthouse and he starts talking to construction workers who are like pro-Trump. I mean, the optics of that is he's just like everybody else, called in like everybody else, and he's facing a system that inherently he believes is corrupt, and it moves that message. So who does it appeal to? I think look at the engagement level. If you were going to tick this on a poll, that's what I'm going to be measuring, is does it keep that base and kind of maybe unaffiliated voters excited and interested in doing something about a system that they fundamentally feel fails them locally or federally. And that's really where this vote is going to come down to.
Well, he's got a lot of catching up to do in terms of fundraising compared to President Biden. Yeah. But I want to ask, sorry, were you going to say something, Joel?
Yeah, Anne-Marie, I do have to pick a couple nits with what Leslie said there. First, just going back to the protest, I think it would be painting with too broad of a brush to characterize all of the protesters as, kind of being an anathema to like American values. The broad majority of the folks who are out there protesting are protesting because they want peaceful resolution of the situation in the Middle East. And I think it would be unfair to paint a broad brush. I'm sure there are bad actors in that crowd, as they are in any crowd, but I think it would be unfair to cast a wide net there. I also think it's pretty dangerous what Speaker Johnson said related to calling in the National Guard and some of the kind of hard police tactics that he wanted to use to squelch, disagreement and dissent. I actually thought that was pretty troubling. So I do want to pick a nit there. And then just related to Donald Trump, and I think Leslie knows this, I'll probably tease her about it after the segment. He is not every man. Okay. He is not a construction worker. I don't know if someone who is digging ditches and digging holes in lower Manhattan sees any symmetry with Donald Trump in terms of the daily experience. They may appreciate his political message, but I actually think, to Anne-Marie, to your point, I actually think the more that Donald Trump shows up small and shows up as somebody who is not willing to take accountability for the things that he's clearly done wrong as being laid out, as Errol reported on, I actually don't think that helps him. And I think that it's hard to see that now on the front end. I think we'll see it a little bit clearer on the back end of this measure of accountability that he's facing right now. But I don't think that does Donald Trump any favors. And I think, by the way, Joe Biden has stabilized in the polls in part because Donald Trump has had to face this public accountability lately.
Very interesting. There's so many other things I can talk about, including that $95 billion aid package. But we have run out of time on this Friday. Joel Payne and Leslie Sanchez, thank you so much.